Psalms 8. The Crown of Creation. This psalm is an unsurpassed example of what a hymn should be. Celebrating it does the glory and grace of God, rehearsing who He is and what He has done, and relating us and our world to Him, all with the masterly economy of words and in a spirit of mingled joy and awe. It brings delight, the unexpectedness of God's ways in the roles He has assigned to the strong and the weak, the spectacular and the obscure, the multitudinous and the few. But it begins and ends with God Himself, and its overriding theme is how excellent is Thy name. The range of thought takes us not only above the heavens and back to the beginning, but as the New Testament points out, on to the very end. The question, what is man, is picked up in 3 other places in the Old Testament, and the answer of the psalm is expounded in the New as carrying implications which only the incarnation, death, and reign of Jesus Christ are big enough to satisfy. In verses 1 to 2, I have titled The Praise of His Glory. This adoration is ardent and intimate, for all its reverence. The God whose glory fills the earth is our Lord. We are in covenant with Him. His praise is chanted on high, yet acceptably echoed from the cradle and the nursery. It is the theme of the whole psalm in miniature. In verses 3 to 8, what is man? Out of this whole array, from stars to sea creatures, only man can look at this scene with the insight to ask such a question. Even in doubt, therefore, it already points to its answer. Further, man has been taught to say thy and thou in such a setting, not only to acknowledge a creator but to converse with him. From his side, God shows in Isaiah chapter 40 verse 26 that the right inference from His ordered heavens is not His remoteness but His eye for detail, and continues in Isaiah chapter 45 verse 18 and chapter 51 verse 16 that He planned no meaningless and empty universe but a home for His family. In verses 5 to 6, in the most obvious scene of the Hebrew, verse 5 would seem to allude to the image of God mentioned in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, which underlines our verse in 6 and 8. But the Septuagint makes God, Elohim, in its rarer generic sense, to mean supernatural beings, that is, angels, as found in 1 Samuel chapter 28 verse 13 and Psalms chapter 82 verse 1 and 6, and in Hebrews chapter 2 verse 7 and 9 follows that translation. Little can sometimes mean for a little while in both Hebrew and Greek, which in the sense probably implied in the epistle. The New Testament opens up fresh aspects of this passage in James chapter 3 verse 7, which points out that man can tame everything but himself, while Hebrews chapter 2 verse 8 in a double comment on our psalm reminds us that while all is not yet subjected to man, our forerunner is already crowned with glory and honor. Paul looks still further ahead in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 27 to the fall of the last enemy and the handing back of all delegated power to the Father. As ever, the coming of Christ revealed a whole landscape of the horizon to which the Old Testament was pointing. The New Testament writers had enough confidence in this material to win its full depth of meaning from it. In verse 9, the praise of His glory. At its return, the refrain will be sung with fresh understanding. It also renews the primary emphasis, which is on God and His grace. For man's dominion over nature, wonderful through it is, takes second place to his calling as servant and worshipper, to whose very children the name of the Lord has been revealed. Thank you, and God bless.